In this video, we're going to be talking about a miter saw, and more specifically, we're going to be talking about how a miter saw can be a very accurate and very repeatable machine as long as you understand some very basic fundamentals of it. I believe that there's a slight misconception when it comes to miter saws, and that is the idea that a miter saw doesn't really have a place in fine furniture. There's a lot of other ways that you can accomplish the same task, that you can't get the repeatability, you can't get the accuracy out of it, and I would argue against that. Now, there's two key things that are going to allow us both accuracy and repeatability, and the first is going to be a support system to the right side of the blade and to the left side of the blade. The second is going to be a stop. Let's first talk about supports. So if I was to take a small board here and I didn't have any support, you know, this is fairly easy to manipulate and manage, seeing as how I do have a little bit of support to the left and right side of the blade. However, when we get into something long like this, imagine trying to manipulate that piece of material, and it could be wider, it could be thicker, it could be a lot heavier, with no support on the left and right side. So by having support on the left and the right side of the blade is going to allow you to easily cut longer materials, heavier materials, thicker materials. With the addition of some sort of support, whether this is built into a miter saw station or like here you see that it has these support wings that are attached to the miter saw, making it a very mobile setup as well, or a permanent setup as you see here, we can incorporate things like a scale into this, and that is going to give us the repeatability when you pair that scale with what we have here, which is a stop. In this scenario, let's say that I wanted to make multiple cuts and I wanted them to be 16 inches in length. All I would have to do is go ahead and set my stop, take my material, move it straight up to that stop, and then I can go ahead and I can make my cut, and I know that that piece is going to be 16 inches. Now, once I've made that first cut, let's say I need to make 20 of these and I need it to be repeatable every single time and accurate every single time among these, all I have to do is slide my material down, touch it up against the stop, and I know that the next cut is going to be 16 inches. Another benefit to a miter saw is a clamping option. And so here, if I want to make sure that this stays in place, taking away completely the need for me to have my hands anywhere near the blade, I can do so by using one of those clamps. Now if I take my two pieces together, I know that they're exactly the same length because I use the repeatability of the machine and the stops and the support in order to achieve that. We can achieve the exact same thing even when cutting angles. So in this example, let's go ahead and move to 45 degrees. We'll go ahead and lock that in, and we can go ahead and make our first cut. Now I'll take this, and let's say that we want this to be, let's say 12 inches. We can go ahead and set our stop, lock that down, and then what I want to make sure of in this instance is that the point, if I want the exterior portion of that to be 12 inches, the point of that cut needs to be the reference up against our stop. Now we can test just to make sure that we're at the right length, and we have exactly 12 inches. Finally, one other thing with the stops is that you do have the ability, when you have a setup like this, and you have it built in and you have scales and all of these other things, having one stop is great. But let's say we're batching out cabinet doors or drawers or something like that where we have multiple measurements that need to be exact over and over and over again. Well, we can do something like incorporate additional stops at different lengths. That way, if I need to make a bunch of cuts at 16 inches, I make all my cuts, I move that stop out of the way, and then I can move on to my 27-inch cuts. Now, hopefully that sheds some light on just how accurate and repeatable a miter saw can be for you in your own shop.